Hi guys, my name is Natalie Sanchez. I'm a personal injury attorney licensed in Texas, and I am going to tell you how you can pass the Uniform Bar Examination guaranteed on the first try, also known as the UBE. Okay, so if we look at this graph, we can see that all the jurisdictions that have adopted the Uniform Bar Examination. As you can see, as of November 7th, 2022, that was just upwards of 32 states. I honestly predict that number will rise given that so many jurisdictions have already adopted the UBE, but we'll see, right? So, notably, New York has adopted the UBE, and so has Texas. Also noteworthy is that California has not adopted the UBE, and that's kind of the only big name state that has not adopted this exam. So I'm assuming no Californians are watching this. Okay, and so the UBE is made up of three parts. It's made up of the multi-state performance test, known as the MPT, the multi-state essay exam, the MEE, and the multi-state bar examination, the MBE. So throughout this video, I'm going to refer to these different parts as the MPT, MEE, and MBE. So do your best to follow along. You know, if you're still a 1L or earlier on in your pursuit to become a lawyer, just be patient and try to keep that in mind. If you're a 3L, I hope you know that by now. Okay, so my bar prep advisor told me that we want to aim for 600 hours worth of study time during the 10 weeks of studying. So if you do the math, that's 60 hours a week. And it's something that I did not take lightly. I actually studied for this amount of time and I passed on the first try. So I highly recommend you do this. I know it's very burdensome, but it's only 10 weeks and you know, the time flies by before you know it. Side note, it was very grueling, but I also wrote on an index card, "This too shall pass, and so will I." And yeah, I just kept it in front of me during the whole 10 weeks. So this is my sample study schedule. I treated it like a 9 to 5, you know, and I also broke up the study time into 4-hour blocks. So the 9 to 5 only counts for 40 hours of your study time. Unfortunately or fortunately, you still have, you know, 20 additional hours to make up worth of study time. And I just kind of sprinkled, you know, 4-hour blocks that made sense to me into what I wanted to do. So for instance, I really wanted to keep my Friday nights to myself. You know, everybody loves to go out on Friday night, whatever. And Saturday nights as well. And so I put a 4-hour block on Saturday morning, so couldn't be hungover, think about that kind of stuff. I also did 4-hour block in the morning on Sunday and 4-hour block in the evening on Sunday, 4-hour block on Monday and on Wednesday on top of your 8-hour workday. So those 12-hour days were nuts. Like, you definitely feel it come week 3, but you know, you'll get there. You'll see what I'm talking about. So another quota, in addition to the 600-hour study quota, I want you to keep in mind that it is recommended that you complete 1,400 MBE questions. So those are, you know, the multiple choice questions. It's recommended that you do 1,400 of those. It's also recommended that you do 60 essays. I think I only did 40. So 40 to 60 essays, you're in the clear. And then 10 MPTs. So just set the bar really high for yourself and, you know, aim for these numbers. You want to have this under your belt by the time the exam rolls around. So just some housekeeping things. You know, I'm going to kind of talk about the MEE, the essays, and the MBE, the multiple choice, together a lot of the time in this video, and that's because they're similar in that you really have to memorize the rules, internalize the rules, and then regurgitate them come exam time. The MPT, on the other hand, it's a skills-based test, and so you could theoretically have zero knowledge of the law coming into the MPT and still gain that full 20% of the bar exam. I'm going to talk about a little bit more of the reasoning why I talk about the two together. So on the MBE and on the MEE, all of these topics are going to be tested. So that's civil procedure, contracts, real property law, con law, evidence, torts, crim law, and criminal procedure. That sounds like a lot of 1L topics, you know? So if you did your work during 1L and you really learned all that you could, awesome. This will just be a refresher. If you kind of just did enough to pass, unfortunately, you're going to have to relearn these topics kind of from scratch. But it's whatever. It is what it is, right? So, you know, those are the crossover topics. They're tested in both sections of this exam. And so when you're studying these topics, you know, you're studying for the MBE and MEE, which is very relieving in my opinion. You know, those are the crossover topics. So I also wanted to highlight that, you know, on the MEE, these topics below, these 5 topics, they're considered wild cards to some extent, you know, but there are these heavily or frequently tested subjects on the MEE, so corporations, partnerships, and agency, secure transactions, and family law. Those are like highly tested topics on the exam, so you don't want to half-ass it. You don't want to say, I'll take my luck, you know, like fingers crossed that one topic isn't going to be on the exam, because it's likely that these 3 topics will be on the exam. Also, you know, trust and wills and conflict of laws can be tested on the exam, but those are kind of not tested as frequently. Yeah, so I took Barbri, and I cannot rave about it enough. I really had a great experience with Barbri. I did get the middle package, which is about $3,600, somewhere around there, and it had everything that I needed. I didn't get the skimpy package, but I didn't get the one that includes an iPad or something. So, you know, that's what I did. Another thing that I did to supplement my studying was Adaptibar. And I only did Adaptibar for the mixed question sets. Now hang on, you know, back it up. I'm going to further explain what I mean by that. So to the right is a bar review study plan. And so going into bar prep, I really didn't know what to expect. I was kind of going into it a little blindly, you know, so I want y'all to have as much information as possible. So this is what a bar review study plan looks like to the right. And as you can see, there are a lot of learning question sets. So at the top row, it says contracts learning question set. Number 3, 8 questions. So you get, you know, several sets per topic, and they really just break down a concept such as like adverse possession, which has like 6 elements or something like that. I'm sorry, it's been a minute, but you know, they break down adverse possession. And so then they'll go through, like one question will go through the hostile element, and then they'll give you answer choice A, B, C, D. And you choose, you know, and it just kind of narrows your focus on a single concept, adverse possession within real property, you know. And so with those learning question sets, I had a notebook on hand, and I would write down each rule statement that I got when I was reviewing it. You know, answer the questions at the end when it's time to review these, have that notebook on hand and basically write down each rule statement that you got from that. So if that question number 1 was talking about adverse possession, and answer choice A broke down the hostile element, B, broke down the exclusivity element, so forth and so forth. I would write down the rule for hostile, the rule for exclusivity. And so that's very, very time consuming, but it helped a lot. And then once you get to the MBE mixed question sets, I would switch over to Adaptibar. That's kind of later in your studying. I think you need a couple of, topics under your belt in order to get to the mixed question sets. But I went to Adaptibar in order to do those. Why? Because Adaptibar questions more resemble the questions on the bar exam. And this is true. The ones offered in Barbri, when it's mixed question sets, they're a lot more clunkier. And on the bar exam, they're written a lot more succinct, straightforward to the point. And I found that Adaptibar is also like that. So just good note. Okay, guys. And another thing that I did was, while watching Barbri, the video lectures, every time that, a lecturer would define a rule, a little text box appears like to the right of them or to the left or whatever. And it just says, it gives a rule statement. So I had my index cards, and every single time a text box appeared, pause it, wrote it down. Reason being is because you can buy flashcards, they offer those, already written with the rule statements, but you can make your own. And from the 60 hours of study time, you don't want to be like passively studying. Like, I watched the video lecture, so I'm good, that's counting as study time. No, you want 600 hours of active engagement with the material. So if you're one who easily glazes over things, I would highly, highly recommend you doing that. While you're watching the video lectures, anytime a little text box appears, pause, write the rule statement down, or whatever little nugget they want you to have, write it down. And at the end of my bar prep study, this is what I had. I had literally all topics completed with flashcards. So it's cool, it was so amazing to finally be done with those freaking flashcards. So now I'm going to talk about the MPT. For the MPT, they give you 3 things. They give you the task memo, the law library, and the client file. And remember, this is a no memorization required part of the exam. It's all skills based. I personally took an MPT class offered at my law school, and so I really recommend that you go ahead and look at what bar prep classes are offered at your law school. I strongly recommend only going with the MPT option. If they offer MBE or MEE, trust me, you kind of just want to save that for the summer and, just don't deal with it. So at the end of the class, I had taken 14 MPTs, and it's literally something that I did not have to worry about when I was studying for those 10 weeks. I had it down packed. Another thing I want you to keep in mind is that you won't show improvement on your MPTs until MPT number 7. Make sure that you're accurately grading yourself. Don't give yourself a bunch of 4s and 5s when you know that you didn't earn it. A lot of people score 2s and 3s on these. So just be patient with yourself, and you'll start seeing improvement around number 7. And again, this is 20% of the bar exam. So you go into it, and if you adequately prepared, you theoretically could have earned 20% of your bar exam, your law license. So the approach is, you're going to spend 5 minutes on the task memo, 20 minutes on the law library, 20 minutes on client file, and 45 minutes writing. I know it's a lot to keep in mind or to keep track of in terms of time, but it's definitely worth it. So for the task memo, they're going to give you the objective. You are an associate attorney. please write an objective memo addressed to me, partner at the firm, and I want to know X, Y, and Z. So in those 5 minutes that you're reading the memo, you should also be already typing. You need to go ahead and start your header. So to, from, date, objective memo. Sincerely, sign your name off, or examinee rather. And give yourself a little boost. You in that first 5 minutes, you already have something on your paper. So again, 5 minutes on the task memo. You want to begin heading your paper, and you want to really understand the objective. There are really only 3 things that they'll ask you to do, which is write an objective memo, write a persuasive memo, or write something out of the ordinary, such as a will or rewrite this legislation. So have some peace of mind that they really only want you to do like 3 things. So next, when you move on to the law library, they're going to give you cases and statutes. So what I did was, already having my header and everything on the paper, I went through the cases and I wrote down every single black letter law that they gave me because I know it's going to be important. For the statutes, if they give you like a paper just full of statutes, don't bother touching it. It's a waste of time to write down every single statute. Don't bother touching it. You'll learn what statute is relevant and which one you need to be talking about. Then when you go to the client file, for instance, maybe they'll give you a deposition transcript. Any time that you see something relevant or something that you just know it's relevant to what they asked you to do, your task memo, go ahead and highlight it. There are some recurring themes that you see. Having read the cases, you'll see it come up in your client file. Go ahead and highlight and circle that. And don't write anything down from the client file. Now, moving on to your writing portion, the 45 minutes. That is when you gel everything together. That is when you use your issue spotting, your conclusion, your legal reasoning, state your conclusion again. So y'all know IRAC, y'all know CRE-RAC, or whatever y'all want to use. That is your time to kind of make it pretty and formulate it all together. But again, just letting you know, it is a little bit of a Frankenstein-y process in terms of, first 5 minutes, header, next 20 minutes, law library, rules. And so you have this like weird looking paper, and then in the last 45 minutes, write down, make it pretty, your IRAC, and bring any relevant facts to your paper. Trust the process, but that is the approach for the MPT. And at the end, I would say, 2 weeks prior to the actual bar exam, start really mapping out, how you're going to basically practice. Like, time for learning is done. Like, you should not be learning in the last 2 weeks approaching the exam. You need to practice. So here is kind of like what I did. This is actually what I did. I notated it in a little calendar of mine. And basically, the first week of those 2 weeks, I did 1 MPT, 3 MEEs, 100 MBEs. Remember, Mondays were my 12-hour days. Tuesday, I reviewed everything that I did the day prior, and then I also did another 50 MBEs. Wednesday, so forth and so forth. So that's kind of what crunch time looks like. And amazing, because when you go into it, you're freaking prepared. Like, you're good. No one can tell you shit. You're going in there with an execution order. You're going in there to execute, annihilate. You've done the work. You're going to nail this exam. Lastly, I just want to say that, bar prep is very grueling. As you can see, a picture of my calendar, it was a very tough thing that I did. Mostly because you don't socialize as much, you're missing out on a lot of things. remember to keep those Fridays and Saturdays, to yourself, or however, best works for you. Maybe you're a Thursday, Sunday kind of person, you go out during those days. But just make sure to prioritize self-care. Um, you know, Make sure to shower, make sure to eat 3 times a day, because you're burning hella calories just doing this mental work. And, just try to keep yourself in good spirits. Again, I made a flashcard saying, "This too shall pass, and so will I," because it's 10 weeks. It's 10 weeks. You can do it. You can dedicate yourself for 10 weeks and get through it. So I also want to talk about the bar exam itself. So it's a 2-day exam, 6 hours each day. Remember to get up early, eat breakfast, drive early, so that parking, doesn't produce any sort of anxiety. You're gonna have a go bag, which is like a large Ziploc bag where you have your pencils, charger, your ID, and your test ticket. And another thing that I did was I took Advil during lunch on both days, and it's because I could go out to my car. And yeah, I took Advil both days because even though my head wasn't hurting in that moment, it was only 3 hours worth of testing at that point. I did it preventatively, and hey, I passed on first try, so I don't know if that worked or what, but honestly, I didn't get a headache in the second 3 hours on either days, so I suggest doing that. On the MBE, the second day, don't second guess yourself. You put in the work, you studied for a lot of hours, and you internalize those rules, and now it's time to show them what you know, right? So just don't second guess yourself. I think I had maybe 20 minutes to spare, maybe 10 minutes to spare, on the MBE portions. And I didn't even think to go back and check, because honestly, your first gut instinct of whether or not, you answered it correctly, it usually is correct. When you go back and start changing stuff, you just don't want to deal with it. Trust yourself, you know it. Don't second guess yourself. Get through the MBE, you're good. The MPT and MEE, my biggest advice is just don't freaking freeze. I had people, the bar examiner next to me actually literally was looking at his paper for so long during the MPT. Meanwhile, because that's the first thing that they do on the bar exam is the MPT on the first day. And so, meanwhile, first 5 minutes, I'm writing, I'm going, I'm telling you, I was executing my kill order. So just saying, don't freaking freeze, just think, the way that I thought about it was with every stroke of my keyboard, I was earning my law license. So don't overthink it. Don't think oh, I'm an English major and I want it to be pretty or whatever. Just go for it. Go for it. Don't think, oh, am I misstating the rule? Am I not doing a good job or whatever? The way that I thought about it was with every stroke of the keyboard, I was earning my law license. With every multiple choice question I bubbled in, I was earning my law license. By the way, bubble as you go. But so think about it this way: if you adequately prepared, you did everything I told you for those 10 weeks, and you're doing your bar exam, there's no reason to be insecure. But I'm sure, or anxiety, or have anxiety, but I'm sure it happens. It does happen. But the only thing that you can do is do your best at that point, right? So with every part of the exam, let's say you turned in your MPTs, in your mind, it needs to be, I earned 20% of my law license. Who cares if you didn't get, a perfect score on each MPT? You're not going to think about that. You earned 20% of your law license. When you finish your essays, you earned another 30% of your law license. Come the second day, all you need is that 50%, to earn your law license. So do your best, complete everything, do it, and you got it. I will say personally, having done everything that I just told y'all, when I walked out of the exam, I knew that I passed, for a fact. So that waiting period was not grueling at all. So with that, best of luck. I truly, want the best for y'all going forward, and putting forth a good faith effort into studying, into taking this exam. And best of luck. If you need me or want to chat, I love mentoring younger lawyers. I am available. I will have a link to my social below in the little blurb, and also I'll also put a link for a bar prep basket. It's everything that I personally used and needed while studying for this exam. So thank you so much, and blessings.